We've been doing movie nights for
years.
So Gen Xer and
A Gen Z. Random weird moments that the two of us have experienced, and there are a lot of those.
And he crashes them.
As you do.
It's like, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, where did this come from? Why are we singing?
I mean, you're not going to learn anything about the movies listening to us talk. This is the Argo City Podcast. Film, conventions, and fan life with Maddie and Matthew. And that's it. We are back. Wow. The cat's climbing the walls. He's knocking the photographs off because he knew we're going to involve it. Sparky, go away. Back to your icy kennel.
Oh my god. Okay, that's one way to start an episode.
It really is. He's got a big head because he's like the thumbnail to this episode. So, it's...
Okay.
Anyhow, we are doing American Scary this week. And that's a movie that might not be on your radar. So, we're back into the movie box of documentary right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is a documentary on the horror host phenomenon. And I can't think of a lot of stuff that we've watched that more sharply illustrates the contrast between our generations. Because the horror host is something that I grew up with and my father grew up with. The idea is, okay, so we would... local TV stations would get a package of movies. Especially like in the 60s, it was the old Universal monsters. Like Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't figure out exactly what they wanted to do with them. And it seems like everybody, independent of themselves, decided, let's have a person introduce these movies, talk about them. And that's where the horror host is born.
Yeah.
And you haven't really grown up with that exactly, but you've grown up watching me.
Yes, I also grew up with something not quite like that. Like, for my generation, being essentially raised on like YouTube and such, like I'd say let's play gaming videos or live streams or like I like to watch a lot of reaction videos, so I kind of get that where, like, I'm watching people react to different series and stuff, but it's not anything close to this.
That's interesting. You know what? That's something we should really explore, too, because it kind of fills that same need, that same void.
Yeah. Exactly, especially the live streams where you can directly impact what's going on with the other person.
Well, and you know what? I remember watching one horror host out of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. So this was the It's Alive show with Professor MC Square and his partner Pointy.
That sounds like a ridiculous name.
Well, they also had Stiffy the Undead Clown.
Somehow that's worse.
It really was. They released an album. It was called Deathmobile. I've played it for you in the car. I have video of you listening to one of the songs. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You're gonna have to show me that after we're done here.
Yeah, we'll do that. But one of the things that they would do is they'd have a live chat during the movie. Actually, I think it was a bulletin board that we just kept refreshing, but we'd talk, and that was a fun thing. But before that, you would have these hosts on local TV. Whoever your local news is, they would do other stuff too. Mm-hmm. They would have kids shows. They would have horror shows. They'd bring you could show up at the station and watch it with them. So the movie would play on the monitor, and then you see the live bits. Everything that you remember about the Krusty the Clown show in The Simpsons, that's where this comes from. It's this tradition.
Oh, actually, yeah, now that I think about it, the movie itself essentially stayed in horror, but they did divulge a little bit into like the cartoon hosts and such, only very briefly. But yeah, I don't think I really realized that. That's very interesting.
The horror ones endure more because horror is a thing in of itself. But even the cartoons, the kids ones, there's a version of that on MeTV, which is national. So it's Toonie, the tuna, Toony, the Tuny, and he has his friend, and they host cartoons every morning. So if you turn on to MeTV, like even on our cable, it's on local access. On Philo, you'll see them hosting Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner and Porky Pig and stuff like that, because they're trying to continue that that tradition. But yes, the tradition's got a lot more to do with horror hosts. And right around the time when I started getting back into conventions, it was right in the middle of this kind of golden age of second generation horror hosts. So one of the things, I cracked open the DVD, and you're like, oh, it's signed. And then I just handed you...
You proceed to hand me like 27 different pictures.
Dozens of photos with me, with different horror hosts.
Yeah, like before we even started the movie, he talked me through who each of them were. And I'm just sitting here like, you've met this many people? Because, I mean, you can look around my dad's library and you can see that he's got autographs from all kinds of people. And he's met a lot of different people. To have met this many people of this specific genre, though, stood out to me.
This really focused niche. I mean, it's not... Horror is kind of niche. Mm-hmm. Horror hosts is even more
these days.
Narrowly focused.
Yeah.
But then again, we're from Cleveland.
Yeah. And actually, one of the things I kept noticing, like, especially when the movie was started and they had, like, the names and stuff underneath each of the hosts.
Right, and where they're from.
All of these people are from Ohio. Why are they all from Ohio?
A lot in Dayton, some in Cincinnati, a lot in Cleveland.
A ton in Cleveland. Like, holy crap. For being a state that essentially is known for, like, being boring because we're filled with cornfields, I swear every time I learn something strange and unique about this state, it's like...
Yeah. Yeah, well, and there's, like, my buddy A. Ghastly Ghoul, and I see Bob twice a year at Cinema Wasteland. He's an actual friend. He puts it like, it's like, you know, they say there's something in the water. No, it's not even the water. There's something in the Kool-Aid out here. And then one of the other guys pops up and says, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a horror host in Cleveland.
That is the most ridiculous quote ever.
But we happen to have one of the originals. Mm-hmm. One of the very first ones. So when you talk about the first horror hosts, we talk about Vampira, and we talk about Zachary, and we talk about Ghoulardi.
Yeah. A little while ago, when we did the episode on the Vegas story, around a couple days later, because it was originally going to be a double feature with that and the...
And we ran out of time,
and a Ghoulardi documentary, and we ended up watching that separately, which is why I had a little bit of, well, more knowledge than I ever needed on this man. He is insane, and I love him.
Ernie Anderson, he's part of our heritage, too. This is a man who, like, he loved his fireworks.
He's insane.
He would roll his motorcycle through the offices and onto stage.
Yeah, he's crazy.
At one point, he saw a bus that had a big Ghoulardi banner on it. He handed Big Chuck his penknife and said, go down and get that for me.
Wait, get the banner
Yes,
off the
cut it
bus?
off the bus and bring it to me.
What?
Or what about the time that he got pulled over? And tons of parking tickets.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's ridiculous.
We have this long history stemming from Ghoulardi. Because Ghoulardi wasn't around that long. He was around for a few years. What did they say about what happened on Friday nights when he was on?
I forget.
They said the crime rate literally.
The crime rate dropped on Fridays. And that if you're able to draw in that many people, that's impressive.
But part of that's because it's local. And that's one of those things that I think, I don't know if you can even imagine that. Mm-hmm. This is a time before the internet.
Yeah.
So, like the idea, and before DVDs, or if you watched a movie, you went to see it in the theater, and it was gone.
Yeah.
You never saw it again unless maybe they played it on TV. And that's what made this so interesting, that, okay, these movies are coming back on TV. So people were watching for that, but then then you have these local guys. Ghoulardi would joke about, oh, what is this show go to Parma?
Oh my gosh.
And they would constantly make fun of Parma and all the pink flamingos that you'd see in the yard. And if you drive through Parma, you'll see it's become a city mascot.
I'm gonna one of my friends lives out in Parma. We actually went for my final year of high school out there, and I'm gonna be keeping my eyes peeled more often when I'm out there.
Mm-hmm. Pink flamingos, knee socks, kibasi. Now that was especially Ghoulardi's successor, the Ghoul. Mm-hmm. Because, like I said, it kicked off this long lineage. So, Ghoulardi spawned the Ghoul, who went to a different station. Mm-hmm. And then you're watching Houlihan and Big Chuck Shadowski, who ran a lot of Ghoulardi's, like the engineering stuff, the sound effects, the video effects. That's what he started off doing.
Yeah. And
then he became one of the replacements. Mm-hmm. And Big Chuck was, all through my teenage years, he didn't retire until I left high school and went to college. My father watched Big Chuck with his first partner, Houlihan. Mm-hmm. And then I watched with his second partner, Little John. Little John's throwing like his big farewell bash in September out around here, bringing in Hooli again, and I'm going to have to go see that. I'm going to have to go and meet Hooli and kind of bid my fond farewell, because we lost Big Chuck earlier in the year. Even Sven Gulli acknowledged that on his nationwide show.
Yeah.
So all that's really fun stuff. I was there for the Ghoul's last appearance too. Mm-hmm. He appeared at a record store and just doing a signing, hanging out. And then we went outside, and they had built a big life-size figure of him.
Oh.
out of fireworks.
Oh?
And we set him off.
Oh God, this looks familiar. Not me this time, no. Come on, Frog, get in the act. You want a lighter? Oh, there she goes. Oh, you don't have that.
Must have been that Taco Bell.
Frog in the aftermath. Look at it. Stay there, Frog. I'm good. I'm good. Nobody's hurt. Do it again.
Whoa!
There he's
down, folks. Down in the shallow plane. Oh, what blew in my ear? Oh my God. You got one fucking insane.
Oh my god.
It was very loud. It was spectacular. I think I saw the video somewhere on
My sensory issues could never.
Ew, wow, yeah. And the ghoul even had his prodigy, that's Son of Ghoul. Mm-hmm. They talked a little bit about that story. So, like, Son of Ghoul, Kevin, he was in a look-alike contest, and the ghoul proclaimed him Son of Ghoul right there on the stage. Mm-hmm. And then Kevin kind of went off and did his own show. And there is actually some bad blood there.
What do you mean?
Well, Kevin's show, Son of Ghoul, was in direct competition to The Ghoul.
Oh.
That kind of thing would happen here and there. And there was always a feeling like you want to protect your market. You want to be the only game in town.
Yeah.
So a lot of times these different hosts didn't know about each other, but if they did, it's like, you stay away.
Huh. I know one of the things that we talked about, at least during the movie, I pointed out that, like, I'm weird with my sense of humor. I prefer, like, very different things, and we pointed out how I really like the Dracula guy there over all the other ones.
You liked Count Gore
because I don't like slapstick humor. I don't like stupid humor. Mm-hmm. But his was kind of, like, informative. Oh.
See, actually, we're going to have to do a side quest, because Gore Duvall has his own documentary. He was out of Washington, D.C. I've met him. He used to be a regular at Wasteland. Then he moved to Florida.
Oh. And it's signed as well.
Oh, yeah.
Huh. But, like, anyways, getting off of my tangent there for a minute, I was like, I don't know, there was something about him that, like, it wasn't immature humor. Like, I get that that's kind of the whole point, but, like, I don't know. He gave me good vibes when we were watching him.
I think everybody has their own. Everybody gravitates to one or another. And especially once we started kind of seeing all these other different ones, mm-hmm. when you could peek into the markets. And that's one of the things we have Gore to thank for, because he was the first one onto the internet. And he started trying to bring them all,
like, connect all the hosts.
Yeah. And okay, I'm going to appear on yours, you're going to appear on mine, and you got to play a little bit more with that.
No, that's hilarious that they were collaborating even that long ago. Mm-hmm. Even before they really had a proper way to do so.
Gore's fascinating too, because we were talking about the kid shows.
Yeah.
Well, see, he did those too. So, he did a local show called Captain 20, where he would host cartoons and stuff like that. And then he was also his local area's Bozo the Clown.
Really?
Yeah, he's got a really interesting story.
No, yeah, we'll have to watch that at some point.
And then he was doing Gore Duvall, because that was kind of his grown-up thing, his grown-up comedy. And I think that feeds into what you're talking about with liking the idea that it's not just stupid, childish humor. He was getting that out in these other two.
Yeah.
And then he wanted to do something more that was a little more grown up.
Yeah, like adult, but still kind of funny, which I'm all for.
Mm-hmm. There were a couple there that you recognized too. Who else did you see that you kind of knew?
Okay, I can't remember which one, but it was one of the ladies with the black dress. I knew one
Elvira.
of them. There was I was aware of the ghoul. I was aware of Son of Ghoul's existence. I knew of Big Chuck and Little John because we had mentioned it a while back.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, the Mystery Science Theater 3000. I walked into the room a couple times when you were watching these, and I know you explained it to me a while back. I don't remember anything about it, but I do remember of its existence.
I enjoy this, too, because it's like, all right, it's a guy trapped in outer space with 2 robots and a mad scientist forcing him to watch bad movies. That's the entire premise of the show.
No,
it's an experiment.
That's hilarious.
It was such a big success for Comedy Central back in the early days that they're like, okay, you know what? We got nothing to do on Thanksgiving. Can you guys, can we do reruns? Can you maybe program some special stuff for us? So they would run what they would call
Turkey Day?
Yes, because all the movies were turkeys. They still do it today, but now they do it online.
Oh.
So, any Thanksgiving, if you wander back here into the library, you'll see it running.
So maybe that's where I remember it so much from.
Probably, because it's on all day, every Thanksgiving, and we usually do Thanksgiving here.
Mm-hmm. No, that's really interesting. And I mean, even just regarding the whole, character and host thing in general, at my high school for junior year, I co-ran a video announcement series.
Yeah, so it's just the daily announcents for the school.
Yeah, on Fridays and stuff. It was a weekly thing. And I would co-host it with one of my friends. And I always loved doing it. I always found it a lot of fun. My teacher at the time fought to get me ungrounded so that I could use my phone to film and edit everything because I was the only one that knew how to do that kind of stuff.
Yes, but the thing I thought was interesting is basically they kind of left you alone.
Yeah, they
let you do whatever you wanted.
And I kind of just vibed. I ended up writing almost the entire thing. But the thing that I noticed about these videos was that, first of all, they were boring. But second of all, they are structured for 2 people. And because of that, occasionally my co-host would cancel on me or would bail on me. And the first time this happened, I was sitting there and I was like, how am I going to do this? He's usually the one that brings the other people to help me with setup because I don't really have any friends here yet. And how am I going to film this? And thus, my character, Mosh, was born. Mosh is the most insane thing I have ever created. It's essentially just me in a hoodie with a paper mustache that I taped to my face. And Mosh spoke in riddles. He caused mischief. In one of my episodes, he actively steals the skeleton from the biology teacher's room and proceeds to hide it in one of the classrooms. And it's hilarious. And I was having so much fun with him.
Of this National Space Day in order to geek out about it. With that out of the way, can everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With the pledge out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and say our quote for today. Though it is true you have little control over most of what happens in this world, you have tremendous influence on your own experiences of the events and the circumstances in your life. And that's a quote by Molly Apple. Hopefully I pronounced that name correctly.
Meanwhile...
Now,
you're
normally
creating
we would
lore.
move straight on to
I made ancillary characters.
I made an entire lore around this character. He was sent from another planet of doppelgangers just to learn how humans behave. And
then one of the doppelgangers shows at some point you're like, I need to dress up in something completely black where they can't see me, and we just walk downstairs, grab costumes, no face mask, a top hat, a robe, a monocle.
And we dressed me up in it, and then when it came for the actual day of filming, I forced my sister to dress up in the character. And it was so much fun. But I had my own experience with that. I had my experience with this Mosh and fighting to write in riddles because scripting is hard. But just having him causing chaos, and the little kids at the school loved it. I have several memories of being approached by like the younger kids in the hallways, because my high school was literally kindergarten to seniors. It was 200 students. It was that tiny. So I would have like little kids walking up to me and like, "Hi, Maddie, I love Mosh. Mosh is hilarious." And I'm sitting here like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing!" And I just,
And that's the power of local broadcasting.
Exactly.
That's what this was all about. Having these hosts and these characters that were in your city.
yeah, and
That would talk about your landmarks and your towns and the stuff that you saw, and that got what life was like. You know, our hosts, they understood that, you know, there's pink flamingos in Parma, and that the river caught on fire at one point and burned for 3 days.
Of course. I had to Google. We paused so I could Google that in the middle of the movie.
You didn't believe it happened.
And I was like, wait, what? It happened. Apparently it did.
They knew that our football team is the Browns. You could see like the King Kong behind Big Chuck and Little John wearing a Browns jersey. Or sometimes he'd have an Indians hat or something like that. And I think we've really lost something because we don't have local programming anymore. So we don't have our local celebrities, our local heroes. And that's kind of what you were getting to do at school. You were the local character. Yeah,
and even people coming and talking to me outside of Mosh, just like saying, "Are you the one in the videos?" It's like, it's so surreal.
Because as far as TV goes, you know, kids, when in my era, we didn't know the difference between Big Chuck and Little John and the big movie star, you know, and David Hasselhoff on Knight Rider. It was all on our TV. Mm-hmm. They don't know the difference between you doing Mosh and Stampy Cat being on the internet. It's all on the same screen.
Yeah, he recently ended his Lovely World series, which is just, memories. My childhood is over.
Well, and I think that's what this kind of speaks to, too. Because we still have Sengulian on locally. Joe Bob Briggs does a horror host show on Shudder. And I think there's still an appetite for that among a certain age. But I think there's a certain hunger for that with younger age, too, if somebody will only give it to you.
Yeah.
And I think the networks don't get that. We had one group try recently. We had a couple of horror hosts. Their names were Leopold and Lenora. And they're both like almost like undead hipsters.
Okay.
And they had accidentally gotten locked in the film vaults of the local TV station for 30 years.
Okay.
And now they're only coming out now and showing you. And it was amazing. And they got 2 years, and then the station changed hands, and now we're not interested anymore. And I was heartbroken.
Like, what? That seems like it'd be so much fun.
There's still some local ones around. One of the ones, we kept seeing Halloween Jack show up.
Yeah.
Halloween Jack was partners for a while there with my buddy Dale Kay. He does Eerie House Radio, which is another podcast on the Podbean app. So go and check him out. Because I started listening to his show ages ago. And again, I'm like, wait a minute. You're talking about the Plain Dealer. That's Cleveland. Wait, no. You're talking about the Chronicle Telegram. That's the Illyria newspaper that I worked at.
Yeah.
And so having that local... I appeared on Dale Kay's Spook Show a couple of times. Every time I show up on his TV show, I'd get killed.
What?
Let's see, there was Death by Dragonfire. No, I wasn't stomped on. I was eaten by a Godzilla.
What?
There was a zombie thing, and it always happened.
Like, is this just you, or is this with all the guests?
It seemed to be a running gag with me.
Okay, no. Now you're going to have to clip these and show me these as well.
One of the photos that I showed you was a clip from one of those shows.
No, I need a clip of the death scene. I need that.
And so it's still alive on public access and on the internet. Like, we even have local ones with The Mummy and the Monkey. That's Janet Decay. And I didn't really care for her original shtick. She was trying to be daughter of the ghoul. Which, that's a little icky. You're poning off of it. But once she got married to her husband, Grimgory, who is the monkey, man, she found her best destiny there. And they do an online Harry Scary hangout. I really like Leopold and Lenora. And Lenora still does live shows around. But I think the one that everybody knows right now is either Joe Bob Briggs on Shudder or it's Sven Gulli on MeTV. And even Mom knows, okay, your show is coming on. We're going to give it a half an hour so that we'll cash up so you can fast forward the commercials. But that's because I still love having that. Yeah. Having that for. I caught up with Big Chuck actually right after he and Little John stopped the weekly movie show. Yeah. And it was nice because he just released his biography. He came to our local library, like literally the Illyria Library. Mm-hmm. So I got to say hello to him, and I told him, man, I'm so grateful that you were there for 40 years. Yeah. That you were there through my father and through me. I don't think I really appreciated it until you were gone. But I really do. Yeah. And I think he knew. He knew he was beloved in the town. And like I said, that's one that I kind of grew up watching. But then again, remember how we were talking about everybody gravitated towards one or another? Yeah. So, if I were to say I had one specific horror host, you know who it is? Who? It's this one. This figure that's laying right by the microphone.
Yeah, I was going to say, when we were watching the documentary, you mentioned that, but he didn't stand out to me at all.
This is Zachary. He's one of the originals. Huh. I have a weird relationship with, because I'm too young to have seen him. Mm-hmm. Like, he started in PA and moved to New York. We couldn't even have broadcast him. But shortly after we got our first VCR, when I was a kid, so I'm 6th grade, probably. Okay. And, of course, you got a VCR, and at that point, videotapes were insanely expensive. You're not buying new movies. You're buying blank tapes. Occasionally recording Star Trek or Doctor Who off the TV. But sometimes, if you're digging through bins, and you've seen me do this at conventions.
Yes, you will sit on the floor for 10, 15 minutes digging through things.
I would do that with videotapes, too, back in the day.
Of course you would.
And I found this one. This is a tape called Horrible Horror, hosted by Zachary, the Cool Ghoul.
The Cool Ghoul?
That's how he referred to himself. Okay. He actually literally refers back to his TV show a couple times. You may have seen some of my experiments on TV. And I'm like, no, I have not, but I am riveted. Okay. So the shtick that they were describing, like when he would create an amoeba by taking a bunch of Jell-O and spaghetti and wrapping it up in a cheesecloth.
It's like, ew.
Or grabbing a cauliflower and talking about how this is a brain, and one of these is a brain, and one of these is a zombie brain. We're going to have to use this drill to figure out which is which. Okay. And it's 2 hours of Zach doing shtick, in between showing trailers and clips from old movies. Stuff that's in public domain. Mm-hmm. Every movie that I ever needed to see. It's like, this is what introduced me to made me search out all these old black and white public domain movies. Yeah. And I watched this thing to death. Over and over and over.
I mean, I can tell, like, even just the outside of it, it's like taped in the corners, and it's this box is like destroyed.
Yeah. It's a VHS tape. So the thing that drove the idea of a horror host in my head, it's this.
You have so many things right here. Okay, I was just handed a book. Good night, whatever you are. That's the best name for a book.
That's how he would sign off.
That's such a great
That's
title.
what he would say. And this is a biography of Zachary. There's only 3 episodes of his show in existence
What?
that survived.
Only 3 episodes?
Well, they didn't keep them. The only way to keep those old shows was to point a camera at a TV that was as it was broadcasting it.
Really?
There's 3 of them in existence. And I've got them. They're on DVD called the Zachary Archives. And this comes from that. His show went off the air. And several years later, they brought him back, only not to do a movie show. He'd been working as a radio DJ.
Yeah.
So there was a New York dance show.
Dance?
Yes. Teenagers would show up at the studio. They'd play the top 50, just the most popular songs of the day, and they'd dance. Sometimes there'd be a guest. Maybe they'd talk about the songs. It's called Disc O Teen.
Okay.
And he came back and did those.
Really?
The whole Monster Kid thing was kind of in fashion. Like you would see teenagers that were really into Dracula or the Wolfman or that. And he just fit. And it's bizarre. There's only 2 episodes of that exist.
Oh my gosh.
And again, I have those. So, right around that time, when I really started getting back into fandom, and I started writing letters, I found him.
You did? Did you get his autograph?
He's right up there,
Oh.
right next to Stanley. In fact, I sent him a photo. He signed that one, and then he pulled this glossy photo out of his own stack and signed this and sent it to me.
That's so nice.
And then he wrote me a letter.
He did.
He wrote me about a full 1-page letter.
Oh, big page.
Big page, yes. This is out of one of my scrapbooks.
Do you want me to read the
Sure.
thing out? Let's see. Matthew, this is June 13th, 2011. Take notice of the bars in both shots. More noticeable in the sitting pose, that pour was left over from the nights when Ed McMahon used to walk through it with a film can underarm and announce to the camera the title of the late night film is. The show was called $1 Million Movie. As I recall, the effect was the coming from the vault where the films were stashed. Ed made it to New York a few years ahead of me and began up there as the announcer of Saturday Night Show, presenting the group's lip syncing their hits of the week. We ran into each other up there till he moved to LA. I'm still here.
So he actually took over for Ed McMahon, who would probably be better known as Johnny Carson's sidekick. And Ed made it all the way to L.A., and Zach stayed in New York. He spent the rest of his life in Manhattan. And he's pointing out stuff in the photo that I sent him and describing it. Just give me a little bit more information. He's got his picture on his letterhead. But the fact that, I got to correspond with this guy that meant so much from just a stupid little $2 videotape.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't just sign the photos and send them back. He took the time to write me, to talk to me.
I love it when people do that. That can really, it shows that he's really a cool guy.
I never made it out to Chiller Horror Expo where he would appear, but I got this, and that letter, I can touch that letter.
Yeah.
I can look at that letter. That's going to last me forever.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So, I think that's really about it for our discussion on the genre, on horror hosts. Although we may have to revisit Count Gore with Every Other Day is Halloween at some point. You'll see a lot of the same faces. You'll see my buddy Ghastly in there. You'll see Dr. Sarcophagi in there, as well
Yeah.
as a few others. And I think one of the things I think the most interesting here is how you're relating it to doing play-alongs and doing your own experience. Because it tells me there's still something there.
Yeah,
There's still something that people want. It spans generations.
Gaming is one of the most popular video genres out there. So
And it's its own storytelling genre. Just like we used to get this with comic books, like in House of Mystery or Tales from the Crypt.
Mm-hmm.
Just like watching Rod Serling on The Twilight Zone introduce the show. We will see you next week with a movie Wheel of Boom.
boom. Bye.